I mean, I want you to imagine just lying in bed.
Right, setting the scene.
Yeah, so you are in this massive, aging apartment building. The kind with those really heavy concrete walls.
Oh, yeah, where you can practically feel decades of history
Yeah.
just settling into the foundation.
Exactly. And you glance at the clock, and it is exactly 2:13 a.m.
No.
And the building is making its usual sounds by, pipes creaking, maybe an elevator groaning somewhere in the distance.
Just ambient building noise.
Right. But then, cutting through all of that background noise, you hear something that is just impossible to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
And it is coming from right inside your air vents.
God, that is an awful thought.
It is the quiet, exhausted sobbing of a little girl. And she is whispering, "Please help me."
Yeah, I mean, that is a sound that completely short-circuits the brain's ability to process safety.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we operate on this unspoken contract with the architecture we inhabit.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we just assume walls are solid barriers, right? Doors lock out the world, and our homes are totally secure.
Right, my house is my castle.
Exactly. So when a voice travels through the hidden veins of a building like that, it just violates that fundamental contract.
It really does.
It turns your sanctuary into a conduit for a stranger's terror.
And that is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are opening up the case files of the Ashbury Heights apartment building in Chicago.
Which is just a chilling case.
Oh, it really is. We are pulling from this incredibly disturbing source text called Echoes in the Ventilation Shaft.
Right.
And our mission here today isn't just to, tell you a ghost story.
No, we want to unpack the actual mechanics of this case.
Exactly. We want to look at how a supposed paranormal urban legend actually ripped the lid off a decades-old cold case.
And what it reveals about the hidden, unmapped spaces inside the buildings you and I walk through every single day.
Right. So, to understand how something this horrific goes undetected for so long, we kind of have to look at the baseline reality of Ashbury Heights.
Yeah, we have to talk about the building itself. So this was a 20-floor concrete structure, and it was built in the early 1960s.
Which is important, right, the era it was built.
Very important. From an engineering standpoint, buildings from that era are just notoriously flawed when it comes to acoustics.
Right, because they didn't have the same building codes we have now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were constructed way before modern sound dampening regulations.
So what was actually inside the walls?
Well, the industrial ductwork inside Ashbury Heights was made of this really rigid, uninsulated, galvanized steel.
Okay.
And the air shafts were massive. The voids between the walls were much wider than anything you would ever see in a modern build today.
So the building was practically designed to amplify sound.
Unintentionally, yes.
It kind of makes me think of like a massive brass instrument, like a tuba or a flute or something.
That is actually a really great analogy.
Right, just channeling air and noise through these metal tubes without losing any of the energy.
That is a highly accurate way to look at it, because without internal fiberglass lining to absorb the sound waves, those steel ducts basically act as acoustic mirrors.
Acoustic mirrors?
Yeah, so a vibration happens at one end, and it simply bounces off the hard metal surfaces. It travels hundreds of feet with just startling clarity. Wow. So residents in these 1960s buildings, they're usually pretty accustomed to some level of auditory bleed.
Like hearing your neighbor's TV or something?
Right. You might hear a phantom footstep or a muffled argument that seems to be like right in your living room.
But it's not.
No, mechanically, it's originating maybe 3 floors down, and it's just being piped directly into your vent.
Which perfectly sets the stage for why it took so long for anyone to take the crying seriously.
Yes.
Because this wasn't just a random groan in the pipes, right? The sobbing was incredibly specific.
Very specific.
It always started at exactly 2:13 a.m.
Every single night.
And it wasn't isolated to just one paranoid tenant who, maybe watched too many scary movies before bed.
Right. It was widespread.
Yeah, the exact same quiet sobbing was heard simultaneously by families on the 3rd floor, the 11th floor, and the 18th floor.
It was a shared experience.
But the sources note that initially, everyone just blamed each other.
Which is such a typical human reaction.
It really is. The tenants were leaving angry notes in the lobby, complaining about someone's kid having night terrors.
Or claiming it was some weird frequency from a neighbor's broken television.
Right. And I just find this fascinating. You hear a clear human voice begging for help inside your walls, and your very first instinct is to knock on your neighbor's door and say, hey, turn down your weird TV.
I mean, it highlights a profound psychological defense mechanism.
You mean the rationalization of fear?
Exactly. Human beings are just incredibly adept at protecting themselves from panic.
Because the alternative is too scary to think about.
Right. If you acknowledge that a child is actually trapped inside a wall, you have to act.
You have to do something.
Yeah, you are suddenly thrust into a life or death crisis.
Mm-hmm.
But if you convince yourself it's just a television or a prank, you retain a sense of control.
Because a television has a volume knob.
Exactly. A prankster can be confronted. You are assigning a mundane human author to an otherwise primal terror.
But you can only play that mental game for so long.
True. The denial eventually broke down.
Yeah, by the second month, the denial was completely crumbling. People were breaking their leases. They were fleeing.
And the ones who stayed?
The ones who couldn't afford to move were literally desperately taping heavy blankets over their air registers, just trying to muffle the sound.
Which, given the physics of those metal ducts we just talked about, probably did absolutely nothing.
I was just going to say that. It wouldn't work, right?
No. The blankets would only muffle, like, high-frequency ambient noise.
Oh, I see.
The low-frequency structural vibrations, and we should mention the sound of tiny fingernails dragging slowly along the steel shafts, which began shortly after the crying.
Ugh, that detail is so awful.
It is. But that sound would transfer straight through the drywall, regardless of any blankets.
Man, that is terrifying. And that collective anxiety finally hit a breaking point because of a tenant on the 9th floor.
Right. They decided to actually gather evidence.
Yeah, they didn't just complain. They actually hit record on a tape deck.
And that audio clip changes the entire trajectory of this story.
It really does, because in that recording, the little girl sobbing just suddenly stops.
There is this dead silence.
Right. And then she whispers, he's coming back. And half a second later, there is this massive, violent, metallic bang that echoes from deep inside the vent.
It is bone-chilling.
So once the building management hears this undeniable tape, they can't just brush it off as crowd hysteria anymore, can they?
No, they cannot. The audio recording transitions the phenomenon from a subjective, easily dismissed nuisance into actionable forensic evidence.
It is real now.
It's exactly. The building manager, Harold Bennett, was suddenly facing the very real threat of police involvement and, honestly, massive negligence lawsuits.
Oh, for sure.
So he had to physically locate the source of the noise.
Which necessitates sending human beings into an environment that was never meant to be inhabited.
Right. The maintenance shafts.
Which introduces us to Miguel Alvarez and Sam Porter.
The two maintenance workers hired to go into the walls.
Right. And we need to kind of paint a picture of what they are actually crawling into here.
It is not a pleasant space.
No, not at all. So this is near midnight. They're opening up an access panel down in the basement. And they are climbing into an unrenovated 1960s industrial air return.
Yeah, it's a completely claustrophobic maze.
Just filled with decades of compacted dust, dead insects, and this overwhelming, choking smell of stale air and rot.
And they have barely any equipment.
Right. They only have heavy flashlights and two-way radios.
That's it.
And as they are squeezing through this incredibly terrifying metal tunnel, Miguel mutters this nervous joke to Sam.
Oh, the raccoon comment.
Yes, he says, probably raccoons. Which is just, I mean, I have to stop and point out the sheer absurdity of that comment.
Oh, absolutely.
They have literally listened to a tape of a human child speaking English saying, he's coming back.
Right.
And Miguel is in the vent trying to convince himself it's raccoons.
I mean, it is absurd. Logically right.
Yeah.
But psychologically, it is completely sound.
How so?
Miguel is experiencing a massive stress response. The environment is actively hostile.
Because of the darkness and the smell?
Yes, the smell of rot, the physical confinement. His brain is frantically throwing out raccoons like a psychological life raft.
I see.
Because acknowledging the reality of a human child in that space means acknowledging the horrific reality of what they might find at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, wow. That makes sense.
And you have to remember, both men were fathers.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. Admitting it was a child was just too paralyzing. The raccoon comment was literally the only way he could force his body to keep crawling forward.
Well, unfortunately, that psychological life raft sinks pretty quickly.
It does.
Because while they are deep inside the primary vertical shaft, just struggling to breathe through all that thick dust, the clock hits exactly 2:13 a.m.
And the crying begins.
Right. Only this time, they aren't listening safely through a bedroom wall.
No, they are inside the instrument itself.
And because of how the sound bounces off that galvanized steel, they can't pinpoint it.
It's just disorienting.
Exactly. 1 second, it sounds like it's 50 feet above them, and the next second, it sounds like it's breathing right on the back of their necks.
Which is terrifying.
And Sam just freezes, and the whole illusion shatters. He just says, that's a kid.
And this is where the physical reality of the ductwork yields something deeply unexpected.
Right. They find something.
Yeah. They are tracking an auditory anomaly, right?
Yeah.
But what they find is a physical artifact.
Hidden beneath a thick, heavy layer of undisturbed dust.
Tucked near the grate of an exhaust junction, they uncover a folded piece of paper.
And it's written in pencil, in this tiny, frantic, childish handwriting.
You have the quotes?
I do. The first note says, he said not to talk loud.
Wow.
Yeah. So they keep moving upward, their flashlights just cutting through the haze, and they find another one.
What does that one say?
I can hear Mommy crying downstairs.
Just heartbreaking.
And then they find the key, a note that reads, the man in room 802 knows I'm here.
Now, the physical state of those notes is a really crucial detail here.
Right, because they weren't new.
Exactly. The paper was heavily yellowed, it was brittle, and it was buried under layers of particulate matter that take literally years to accumulate in an HVAC system.
Which fundamentally alters the timeline.
Exactly. This was not a prank being played on the current 9th floor tenant.
No.
Miguel and Sam had stumbled into a time capsule. Those notes were mapping out the desperate psychology of an active hostage situation, but from decades past.
Which completely shifts the stakes for Miguel and Sam.
Oh, entirely.
They are no longer just chasing a weird noise in the pipes. They are literally crawling through a historical crime scene.
Yes.
And that specific detail, room 802 anchors this whole terrifying experience into a real-world location.
They give them a target.
Right. But before they can even process that, the tunnel opens up into this hidden cavity near the 14th floor.
Which is bizarre.
It is. I mean, how does a 20-story building just have a random, unmapped cavern inside its walls?
Well, it is actually a byproduct of how high-rises from that era were framed.
Really?
Yeah. When engineers ran the primary utility lines, water, electricity, and the massive HVAC returns, they often built a structural chase that was far larger than necessary.
Oh, just to give the workers room to move around?
Exactly, to allow workers room to maneuver during installation.
Okay, that makes sense.
But once the walls went up, those service gaps were simply sealed off.
And people just forget about them.
Right. Over time, building plans are lost or altered. What Miguel and Sam found was a service void behind a loose, modified vent panel.
And you said this cavity was small?
Barely large enough for a child to sit up in.
God, and when they shine their flashlights into this void, the horror is just tangible.
What'd they find in there?
It is filled with brittle, aged blankets. There are dozens of these scattered handwritten notes, tiny plastic toys, old candy wrappers.
Just a whole life hidden away.
Yeah, and pinned to the concrete is a missing child poster. It is dated 1993. It is for a 7-year-old girl named Lily Mercer.
Right.
She had vanished from Ashbury Heights over 30 years ago and was just never found.
Which is tragic.
And the final notes they discover in that cavity are devastating.
I can imagine.
One says, he said, I can't go home because Mommy will tell.
Oh, man.
And the absolute last one reads, if someone finds this, please tell my mom I tried to stay quiet.
It really hits you hard.
It does. Beneath the sheer terror of this urban legend, you really have to hold on to that detail.
Yeah.
This is a grounded, heartbreaking human tragedy. It's a terrified child trying to negotiate survival by following the rules of a monster.
And that underlying tragedy is precisely what fuels the theory of traumatic loops in paranormal research.
Traumatic loops.
Right. The idea is that when emotional energy and sheer terror reach an absolute peak, they can physically imprint upon an environment.
Sort of like how a magnetic tape records audio.
Exactly like that. The structure of the building absorbs the trauma and simply replays it.
Oh, I see.
So when Miguel and Sam hear the crying echo again, and this time directly behind them, they turn to witness the visual manifestation of that trapped trauma.
Now, wait, I need to push back on that theory for just a second.
Okay, go ahead.
A loop implies a playback. Right, like a VHS tape just spinning over and over.
Typically, yes.
But what happens next completely blows the loop theory out of the water.
How
Because they turn around and they see her crouching in the shaft just 20 feet away.
the little girl.
Yeah, little girl in faded pink pajamas, totally coated in gray dust. And they realize something is horrifyingly wrong with her legs. Her feet are bent completely backward, broken.
Which is an agonizing detail.
But the thing is, she doesn't just replay a memory. She looks directly at Miguel and Sam.
Right.
She locks eyes with them and she whispers, "He still lives here."
Uh,
She is actively warning them. That implies a consciousness, doesn't it? It's interacting with them in real time.
You know, that is the pivotal anomaly. You are correct. It defies the strict playback model entirely.
Yeah.
The interaction suggests something far more complex. It suggests an entity that is not only aware of its past trauma, but completely aware of its current surroundings.
Which is even scarier, honestly.
Very much so. And the visual of the broken feet, that indicates the physical abuse inflicted to prevent her from climbing out of those vertical shafts.
Oh my God. I didn't even put that together.
Yeah. But her warning, "He still lives here," that acts as a catalyst for the rest of the encounter.
Because the environment reacts to it.
Exactly. The moment she acknowledges the presence of the captor, the environment reacts violently.
Everything just goes haywire. The flashlights completely die. Total suffocating darkness.
Just absolute pitch black.
And the two-way radios just explode into this deafening static.
Right.
And then the sound of the crying multiplies.
It isn't just her anymore.
No, it is no longer just Lily. The steel walls start groaning under the auditory pressure of dozens of children sobbing simultaneously.
Coming from every direction in the shaft.
It's absolute chaos. Until a man's voice, deep, furious, and just booming through the metal says, "Be quiet."
And notice how that phenomenon perfectly mimics the original dynamic of the kidnappings.
Oh, the control aspect.
Yes, the captor possessed absolute control over his victims in life, and that horrific power structure has transferred over into whatever post-mortem existence this is.
They are still trapped in it.
The victims are still entirely subjugated, because when the voice demands silence, the cacophony of crying stops instantly.
They obey him.
They obey him, even in death.
And in that sudden, dead silence, they hear the most terrifying sound yet.
What was it?
The heavy, deliberate sound of someone crawling through the pitch-black shaft toward them.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Miguel starts frantically hitting his flashlight against the metal.
Trying to get it to work.
Right, and he finally gets it to flicker on, and the beam cuts through the dust, and they see a tall figure.
Inside the vent with them.
Yes. It is bent in half, contorted in this sickening, unnatural way just to fit inside the narrow duct. They can't see a face, just shadows. But the flashlight beam catches one detail perfectly.
The keys.
Dangling from the figure's leather belt are heavy brass apartment key tags, and the numbers stamped into the metal read 802.
And those key tags serve as the crucial bridge between the supernatural experience in the vents and the tangible legal world.
Exactly. Because Miguel and Sam barely survived their scramble out of that ventilation system.
But they made it.
They did, and they emerged with the exact actionable piece of evidence the authorities required. Room 802.
And the police acted on it.
Oh, right away. The police didn't write this off as two guys hallucinating in the dark.
Good.
The very next morning, a tactical unit seals off sections of Ashbury Heights. They are targeting the resident of apartment 802.
So who was living in 802? What exactly did they find when they breached that door?
Well, the apartment was registered to a 74-year-old man named Walter Grayson.
Okay.
He had lived in that exact unit continuously since 1989.
Wow, a long time.
Yeah. And the raid on his apartment is described as an assault on the senses.
In what way?
The moment officers breached the door, they were hit by the smell of rotting wood, pervasive mold, and this underlying stench that was unmistakably biological decay. But the true horror was revealed when they started examining the floor plan.
Because it didn't match.
Right. The dimensions of the interior didn't match the building's blueprints.
Which brings up a huge question.
How does someone pull that off?
Right.
How do you alter the floor plan of a heavy concrete building without anyone noticing?
Well, it requires meticulous predatory patience.
So he did it slowly.
Yes. Grayson didn't knock down concrete structural walls. He couldn't do that.
Right.
Instead, he built false walls over the existing drywall.
Wait, he just built inward.
Exactly. By framing out a new wall just 18 to 24 inches inward from the original, he shrank the square footage of his living room and bedroom.
Wow.
So to a casual visitor, the rooms just looked slightly smaller.
If they even noticed at all.
Right. But in reality, he had created a network of hollow, soundproofed voids running the entire perimeter of his apartment.
It's like he was a parasite that just adapted to the host.
That is a perfect description.
He literally hollowed out Ashbury Heights to serve his needs. And when the police smash through those false walls, they find the nightmare.
The evidence.
Piles of children's clothing, old decaying toys, Polaroid photographs, and dozens more of those tiny, frantic, handwritten notes that match the ones Miguel and Sam found in the vents.
It's just horrifying.
But here is the massive missing puzzle piece in all of this.
Grayson wasn't there.
Right. When the police kicked in that door, Grayson wasn't there. There was no sign of a forced exit out a window, no fingerprints showing a rushed escape down the stairwell. He was simply gone.
Vanished.
How on earth did a 74-year-old man know to run, and how did he vanish without a trace?
The escape really speaks to his intimate, predatory knowledge of the building's hidden infrastructure.
Because he knew it better than anyone.
Exactly. A man who spends 3 decades using the maintenance shafts as his personal hunting ground is going to know every blind spot, every rusted-out grate, and every subterranean exit route better than the architects who drew the blueprints.
So he just slipped away.
He likely slipped into the walls the moment he sensed the environment shifting.
But how did he know the police were coming?
Well, the evidence points to something deeply unsettling.
The final note.
Yes.
Sitting perfectly centered on Grayson's kitchen table, the police found a brand new, crisp piece of paper. The handwriting was identical to the decades-old notes, but the pencil lead was completely fresh.
And what did it say?
It just said, "He heard you coming."
That note implies a terrifying symbiosis.
Between Grayson and the haunting.
Yes. The haunting wasn't just a trapped memory, it acted as a supernatural alarm system for the killer.
Wow, that is wild.
The entity of Lily Mercer warning Miguel and Sam that he still lives here was simultaneously alerting Grayson that the veil had been pierced.
Because she was reacting to him and he was listening.
Exactly. And the subsequent excavation by forensics teams revealed why Grayson had to build his life inside that specific architecture.
Right, because beneath the old maintenance tunnels, burrowed right into the dirt below the massive concrete foundation of Ashbury Heights, authorities unearthed the remains. Small, scattered human remains belonging to children who had vanished over a span of 30 years.
Which is just the darkest outcome.
Most of them were never successfully identified.
It really represents the ultimate corruption of infrastructure.
What do you mean?
Well, the ventilation shafts, the plumbing chases, the maintenance tunnels. These systems are literally the lungs and veins of a building.
They keep the building alive.
Right. They're designed to bring in fresh air to maintain the health and safety of the living spaces.
And he turned them into a graveyard.
He weaponized them. He repurposed the life support system of Ashbury Heights to facilitate and conceal his unspeakable crimes.
And, the unearthing of all that horror was the fatal blow for Ashbury Heights as a building.
Unsurprisingly.
You can't just patch the drywall and rent out apartment 802 again.
No, nobody would live there.
The fallout was immediate. The building emptied out rapidly. Tenants couldn't sleep knowing what the concrete they were standing on was hiding. So within a matter of weeks, this massive 20-story structure was completely abandoned, and the city officially condemned it.
Yet the physical shell of the building remains standing today.
It does.
And according to the sources, the condemnation of the property did not stop the phenomenon.
Not at all.
The legacy of Ashbury Heights is one of a lingering, violently unresolved history.
Which brings us to the present day.
Right.
Demolition crews have been contracted to tear the structure down, finally, but there is a massive problem.
We will go in.
The union workers flat out refused to step foot inside the building, specifically near the ventilation system, after dark.
Yeah, you can't blame them.
Because even now, with the electricity totally cut and the building totally devoid of the living, the crying continues.
Every night.
Every single night. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the metal shafts echo with the quiet sobbing of Lily Mercer.
It really forces a complete reevaluation of our surroundings.
Doesn't it?
Yeah. What began as a simple, annoying creak in an old building, a sound people desperately tried to blame on a neighbor's television was the loose thread that unraveled a serial killer's 30-year labyrinth.
It really makes you think.
It serves as a stark reminder of the history that might be embedded in the walls we just take for granted.
It really does. We started this deep dive by asking you to imagine lying in your bed, listening to the walls of your own building settling in the night. But I want to leave you with a final, deeply unsettling detail from the case file to mull over.
What is that?
The demolition workers who still hear the little girl crying at 2:13 a.m. report that she is no longer alone.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you stand near the main return vents and listen carefully, you can hear a second sound echoing just behind her voice.
Okay.
It is the slow, heavy sound of an adult body dragging itself through the narrow steel ducts, searching for her.
Wow.
Now, given that 74-year-old Walter Grayson vanished without a single trace that night, leaving absolutely nobody behind,
Right, they never found him.
is the sound of that heavy crawling the ghost of Walter Grayson condemned to continue his hunt in the afterlife? Or did the living, breathing Walter Grayson simply retreat deeper into the condemned, unmapped walls of Ashbury Heights, never actually leaving the building